J-Hope's eyes filled with tears as Jin plays "I Am the One I Should Love" on piano in a moment that left the entire stadium silent, in a moment no one could have predicted and even fewer could explain. The emotionally restrained atmosphere of Jin's Run Seokjin _EP Tour US shattered when a single spotlight exposed not the main performer, but a silently weeping J-Hope standing just behind the piano. What had been an emotionally charged yet orderly concert turned into a heart-wrenching scene of vulnerability and unspoken grief as Jin, seated before a grand white piano under a pale wash of light, sang a line that pierced through the noise of the arena. "I am the one I should love." It wasn't just a performance. It was a confrontation with memory, loss, and the fracture lines that continue to ripple through BTS. Why did J-Hope appear so suddenly, completely unannounced, at Jin's solo concert in America? Why did he choose that exact moment to step onto the stage, only to stay silent and trembling? What did the crowd not yet understand about what was truly being said between the notes of the piano? Fans who were present described a chilling stillness that fell across the stadium when J-Hope was spotted, his hand covering his face, visibly shaken. He stood frozen as Jin's fingers glided gently over the keys until tears began to stream down his face. This was not part of any official schedule. J-Hope, who is currently fulfilling his military service duties, had not been listed as a guest or even as present in the country. Yet there he stood, his military haircut still visible, dressed in dark casuals, not speaking a single word. His sudden appearance wasn't just surprising. It was haunting. For a group that built their reputation on tight synchronization and shared purpose, this one moment of unscripted raw emotion delivered more impact than any coordinated encore. As Jin played, his expression remained focused, but far from unreadable. Observers noted a distinct tightness around his mouth and a shift in his breathing as J-Hope entered the stage. Was this planned? Was it a gesture of support, or an emotional outburst finally brought to light after months of speculation? Why this song? The truth untold, some fans whispered. But it wasn't. The melody was unmistakable. Epiphany. A song not only composed in isolation but performed now in isolation, until J-Hope broke that barrier simply by standing there, weeping. And what does that say? About Jin? About the bond between them? About what's being said behind closed doors inside the company's walls? Observers online are already dissecting every angle. Some are calling it a coded message, pointing to the lyrics of Epiphany as a desperate call for self-love amidst mounting internal tensions. Others argue that this was simply a friend, overwhelmed by the beauty and gravity of the performance. But what friend shows up halfway across the world, uninvited, and collapses into tears in front of tens of thousands? What struck most viewers, however, was the timing. Jin was nearing the end of the second act of the concert. His solo tour had been an unexpected phenomenon, already laden with questions about group unity, military absences, and management pressure. Fans were unsure if this tour represented artistic freedom or quiet separation. And just when speculation had begun to cool, J-Hope's tear-filled presence ignited a firestorm again. The way Jin played the song changed from his usual rendition. He slowed the tempo. His voice cracked slightly on the second chorus, something not seen in prior shows. There was no banter, no crowd interaction, just a man at a piano, and another man behind him, seemingly unable to hold himself together. The crowd, which had until then been cheering enthusiastically for every segment of the performance, went eerily quiet. Some attendees later described the sensation as watching something they weren't supposed to see. Was this an accident? A coincidence? Or a silent confession of something far deeper? There is no confirmation as to whether this moment was pre-planned. And perhaps that's what makes it all the more disarming. J-Hope did not take the mic. He did not join in. He did not even step forward fully onto the main platform. He simply stood there and cried. And when the song ended, Jin turned briefly, acknowledged him with a subtle nod, and the lights faded to black. No explanation. No announcement. Just a shift into the next track, as though nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The emotional implications of that moment are already being felt across social media and fandom circles. Clips of J-Hope's face, barely lit behind the piano, are circulating rapidly, with captions like, "He couldn't hold it in," and "Jin knew. That's why he chose that song." Theories abound. Had they just spoken backstage? Had something happened between them? Was this a message to the members who are absent? Was this pain? Was it guilt? More than anything, it has reignited questions about the unseen emotional toll this era has taken on the members of BTS. For all their professionalism and polished public appearances, this moment suggested something unguarded, something irreparably human. If Jin and J-Hope, two of the most emotionally resilient members, cannot contain themselves in this way, what does it imply about the state of the group? And what about the song itself? "I am the one I should love" is a line about self-acceptance. But when performed with such trembling vulnerability and received with such visible grief, it begins to feel like a cry, almost a rejection of the expectations placed on both idols. Could it be that Jin was singing to himself, for himself, with J-Hope standing as a living echo of that struggle? For years, BTS has carefully balanced global fame with internal cohesion. But the individual tours, the military enlistments, the long silences between official statements, all of it suggests a group in transition. Whether toward transformation or fragmentation is unclear. What is clear, however, is that this single performance has brought more raw truth to light than months of press releases. And words were spoken. No explanations given. But one moment, one piano, one song, one tear-streaked face, may have just spoken louder than anything else this year. And now the question lingers. What really happened between Jin and J-Hope backstage? And why did this emotional collapse happen now? At this exact point in Jin's tour, the answers remain hidden. But the silence of that moment, and the tears, have already etched themselves permanently into the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. As the concert progressed and the stage lights shifted into new arrangements, the image of J-Hope silently breaking down while Jin played remained lodged in the minds of everyone present. Even as new songs filled the arena, it was clear that something had shifted irrevocably. This was no longer just a performance. It had become a public emotional unraveling, and yet neither Jin nor J-Hope offered any clarification. That silence is what continues to haunt the fanbase. Observers, both at the scene and online, began dissecting every frame of footage available. The angle of J-Hope's posture, the slight tremble in Jin's voice, the way Jin didn't look back during the performance but only acknowledged his bandmate after the final note. Each detail became a subject of analysis. What stood out to many was how Jin never once broke concentration. His delivery of Epiphany was slower, more labored, as if he was deliberately savoring each word, perhaps even trying to hold back his own emotions. But those who know him best recognize the subtle signs: the tension in his shoulders, the heaviness of his breath, and the tightening around his eyes. He wasn't just performing, he was carrying something, and so was J-Hope. The man once known as the mood maker of BTS, a source of brightness and stability, now looked shaken to the core. For a group that has spoken openly about mental health and self-love, the imagery of one member performing, "I am the one I should love," while another breaks into tears behind him, is not just symbolic, it's devastating. Why now? Why this song? And why in the middle of an American tour? The choice of Epiphany was strategic. Not only does it come from a pivotal emotional point in BTS discography, but it also carries with it the weight of Jin's individual journey, an anthem of self-realization and internal acceptance. Yet in this context, it sounded less like affirmation and more like a lament. The performance wasn't uplifting. It was raw, intimate, and almost mournful. J-Hope's presence, even without a single word spoken, added a second voice to that lament. Together, they said something without ever needing to vocalize it. Perhaps it was a message to the fans, perhaps to the rest of the members, or perhaps to themselves, about the unbearable weight of expectations, of separation, of holding it all together in front of the world. there has been no follow-up on official channels. No statement from HYB. No acknowledgement on social media. It's as if the moment is being left untouched, left to breathe on its own, or intentionally ignored. But fans aren't letting it go. The footage is everywhere, and the questions are multiplying. Some ask whether J-Hope's sudden appearance was triggered by a prior conversation, or even a confrontation. Was there a backstage incident before the concert? Did something break? And Jin, why didn't he speak after the performance? Why didn't he address the moment? Those who know his public persona might say it's in character for Jin to maintain composure and let music speak for itself. But this moment didn't feel composed. It felt like a suppressed implosion, a mutual breakdown that happened in full view of tens of thousands and yet somehow remained unspeakable. The silence has become louder than any explanation could be. For a group as carefully managed and tightly coordinated as BTS, this kind of unfiltered vulnerability is unprecedented. Jin's solo tour was already being scrutinized as a reflection of where the group might be heading. Was it signaling independence? Was it just a temporary project during enlistment absences? Or was it something deeper, a quiet drift between members? J-Hope's unannounced arrival complicates those interpretations. It either hints at deep bonds that persist beyond any official schedule, or it reveals how thin the line has become between personal pain and professional performance. In the days following the event, online communities have grown increasingly divided. Some fans believe this was a prearranged emotional tribute, a show of unity. Others argue this was a real-time collapse, with no script, no control, and no message other than pain. A few go even further, speculating that J-Hope's tears signal something about the group's internal status that management has been concealing. It's not the first time questions have arisen about BTS cohesion post-military enlistments and solo ventures. But this incident didn't stem from a rumor. It wasn't a leaked report or tabloid piece. It was witnessed by thousands, recorded in high definition, and played out in real time. It was undeniable, so the question remains, what are we really seeing? When Jin sings, "I am the one I should love," is he reclaiming control, or is he reminding himself of something he's been forced to forget? And when J-Hope cries, is it in solidarity or in grief? This is no longer just about a concert. It's about a fracture surfacing in plain sight, disguised as art, but too real to dismiss. And as the tour continues, every note, every song choice, every interaction, or lack thereof, will now be viewed through the lens of this moment. Jin at the piano, J-Hope in tears, and a crowd that watched, stunned, unable to decide if they had just witnessed beauty or breakdown. Was this a goodbye, a warning, or a cry for help? No one knows, because no one is saying anything, and maybe that's the loudest part of all.